is there a city that you've been to or that you've studied that is doing it right?
Well, I think there's lots of different things happening. Some of them are really good. I mean, I think that Los Angeles has recently done sort of an ambitious rezoning of the Hollywood area, which is a great complement to some of the metro construction that they've done there. That Portland, Oregon, is very famous for its sort of green space preservation, its growth barrier there, but it's also done a lot to encourage, infill building sort of in the historic city core, and has had, for a coastal city, I mean, a pretty decent population sort of growth rate and level of development there. Minneapolis, which I mentioned before, it is quite cold, but their mayor is also doing, I think, some good things to look at the amount of parking that people traditionally are required to build adjacent to things, and maybe they should ease up on that. Baltimore also had a big parking reform recently. Washington, D.C., we're promulgating a new zoning code as we speak, and it's not great, actually. I mean, I have a lot of problems with it, but it takes a number of steps in the right direction toward letting the creation of more what they call accessory dwellings. This is the idea that, if you have a garage or a basement space that you don't need, because maybe the house you live in was built at a time when families would have 4 or 5 or 6 children, maybe you can turn some of that space into a rental unit. Single people might take that space. So I think you see a lot of different cities taking sort of small steps or tackling different sides of these issues, and you need sort of more of that and more integration.
Can you talk a little bit more about the parking thing? We have, in a lot of places, I think in San Diego, this comes up because there are particular numbers of parking spots that you need to build if you're building a for sale property versus a for rent property and things like that. What do you think should happen with parking regulations?
I mean, parking, I really think it's sort of fantastic that we take it so much for granted that this has to be regulated. I mean, and when you say that I don't really think there needs to be any rules about this, people sometimes hear that as saying, well, like Yglesias doesn't want anyone to build parking anywhere. But no, I mean, obviously, most people in America own cars and drive them around places all the time. And so they're going to want a parking space for their house. But people aren't idiots. They're not going to forget that. I mean, I was just looking around at real estate before I bought a house. And, anyone who's showing a place, if it has a parking space, they're really eager to tell you about it. Because people know. And developers are perfectly capable of recognizing that people are going to want parking and providing it. At the same time, weird situations do sometimes emerge where these kind of codes, can't foresee exactly what shaped lots are going to be all the time. And so in many cities, people will say, well, it's not that big a deal because you can apply for variances. And, you can apply for variances, but anytime you need to do that, it becomes another hassle. It becomes another chance that people might block things for sort of different kinds of nefarious reasons. But it also prevents neighborhoods from ever sort of changing their character, right? That a lot of cities over the past 20 years have built more mass transit type stuff, which is great. I think it's good. But to really take advantage of that, you have to let buyers and sellers alike say, maybe we don't need much parking because people can just around here. Because then if some people come in without as much cars, then there's more businesses come around that expect that people won't necessarily have the cars. And then when you have more businesses that serve a pedestrian clientele, it becomes more viable to do developments that don't have as much parking. There's a whole kind of